Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today, it is my honor to have Dolph Goldenburg with me. Dolph has a track record of guiding organizations through leadership transitions, strategic planning, and board development. In his 11th year as a nonprofit executive, Dolph lost touch with himself, experienced extreme burnout in 2013, and was horrified to realize that he had become a toxic human being. After giving 8 months' notice and onboarding his replacement, Dolph spent almost a year wandering the globe to rediscover a sense of awe, his compassion, and his zest for life. Guess what? He found it. Dolph started successful nonprofits in late 2014 to strengthen the nonprofit sector through consulting, podcasting, and publishing. It's one of the few consulting practices that has published a manifesto and is guided by principle, not profit. His clients have included large nonprofits like North Coast Opportunities and Hope Atlanta, and also small but mighty nonprofits like the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund and Pebble Tossers. So, welcome, Dolph.
Thank
I
you,
was
Jack. It's so good to be here.
so listen. We both have been in this fundraising world for decades now, and one of my friends and colleagues, Jason Lewis, always says that fundraising is kind of going through a messy adolescence, right? It's just in the last 50 or 60 years that fundraising has really kind of come into its own as a profession. People used to do it off the side of their desk, and I would actually venture to say that most people still do it off the side of the
hmm
desk, because most organizations just don't have the depth or the finances to hire someone exclusively for fundraising. So, with that in mind, where do you see fundraising going in the next 15 or 20 years?
So I think the professionalization of fundraising is going to continue, but I also think where a lot of us are going to be caught off guard is fundraising is also going to become on the not, let me back up. I'm not talking about major donors here. I'm talking about, kind of your core annual campaign, your donors that are giving you $50, $100, $250, $750 a year. I actually think that a lot of it is going to become very transactional with artificial intelligence.
Right.
And then I think for the professional fundraiser, it's going to be how do you take that information that artificial intelligence is giving you so that you can identify those prospects who are likely to go from $500 donors to $50,000 donors, because as you know, most $50,000 donors don't start at 50,000. They'll start at 250 or 500 and see what you do.
Right. Right. It's interesting. Almost every organization that I've ever been with, they always say, "Well, we need more donors." And my response is usually, you don't need more donors. You need the donors that you have to give you more money. And you need to focus on the right thing. Uh, there was one organization where they actually they used to list all the top donors to the organization. I stopped that because there's just no benefit to that.
hmm
And one of the top donors called me up and said, "Jack, where's the list?" And I said, "Well, we aren't doing it anymore." "Well, why not?" And I said, "Well, what do you need the list for?" "Well," he says, "well, I want to know if people are giving what they should or if they can afford to give more." And I said, "Well, every single person on the list can afford to give more. What's your next question?" And it just, it took
yeah.
the wind right out of his sail, right? So I do agree. I think that there's going to be a big split, right? So those kind of arm's length fundraising, so it's the direct mail, the events, those ones that you can kind of hive off and hire a firm to go and do for you, or an AI, as the case may be. I think that's totally, you and I are singing from the exact same hymnal on it. I think that's going to happen. Where you're going to look at those other folks and to be able to pick some great nuggets from your own database is on, which folks can move up to the major gift
hmm
side, and even which folks can move up to the legacy or the bequest side, with deferred giving.
hmm
And there's huge potential there. Can you?
Agreed, and that's also where I think, and it's funny because I'm not that tech savvy of a person. I mean, yeah, I'm probably the least tech savvy person who has a podcast, honestly, because I mean, yeah, there's still things I don't know how to use on my phone.
Right.
So it's odd that I'm the person who's saying this, but I really do think, for example, like we already have databases, fundraising databases that can scrape donors' social media and give you a lot of data on that donor. What do they really care about? What are their politics like? Do they do fundraising like birthday campaigns on social media, et cetera? Can scrape all of that data, and I believe that's going to be so important and influential for trying to figure out which of those donors might take the next step and become a major donor. But I also think there's a little bit of a garbage in, garbage out. And so if as an organization you don't have the staff necessary to take advantage of that, your staff will just get overwhelmed. None of us can have 150 brand new major donor prospects and actually steward them in a way that we're going to get 150 gifts.
Right, right. And I think it's all about that managing of expectations. And you're quite right, garbage in, garbage out. I also believe that the database is probably an organization's biggest asset, because at some point, each and every member of the fundraising department is going to leave
Mm-hmm.
at some point in time, but that database that has its history is not. So instead of recreating the wheel, I'm a strong advocate. You record absolutely everything you possibly can in the database.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I agree with you. It is organization's best fundraising asset. For a lot of organizations, it's also their greatest weakness and their greatest threat.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. If people aren't on top of it, and everyone has their own little Excel charts with information, well, that's of no use, right? You're just throwing money right out the window.
Right, right, and also like even the best database still, and maybe in 10 years it won't be this way. Even the best database, like a human being in the development office has to manually look at every record on some level of frequency.
Right.
At least once a year, but in some cases quarterly or or
Yeah.
twice a year.
So, Dolph, let me just kind of flip gears just for a quick
Yeah.
second on as we wrap up. One of the questions I always ask my guests is, in the fundraising world, you're working really, really, really hard. So I know you just came back from a large vacation, but what do you do on a daily basis to unwind? How do you kind of separate the work from life?
So that's a good question, and I wish I could tell you I was perfect at it, and I wish I could tell you that I've figured it out. And every day, when I'm done with work, my brain turns work off, and I don't think about it. Like again, kind of when we're talking about bios, I just always want to be upfront. Like I'm a work in progress on this, but for me, it's a few things. The biggest one is I try to plan for me a physical activity after work. And so and during the pandemic I was not able to do some of this, but I was able to do some of it. And so I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so during the pandemic, close contact with other people, not down for that. I have gone back to it now that I'm vaccinated and twice boosted, but
Right.
so I'm training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I go for a run, and then the other thing is my husband and I have a couple of rituals, and he has some evening meetings, and he's a lawyer who has some evening meetings, and as a consultant I have some evening meetings. But whenever we are both home in the evening, we make dinner. We have no kids, but we sit at the dining room table together. We eat dinner. We do a very brief "How was your work day?" check-in, but unless someone had a traumatic experience, we don't talk about work a lot.
Right.
And then on the weekends, we kind of have a no work talk rule, which actually I kind of had to start to put in place because he kept asking about work, and I was like, this is my weekend. I'm not going to talk about work. But on Sunday nights, we power down, and so we do no social events on Sunday night. We turn all of our electronics off, our laptop, our phones, everything goes
Wow.
off. And and even if we just sit on the couch and watch a movie together, like it is we're very clear that this is the time where no one else in the world can interfere with our time. And our family knows that. Our families, plural, know that. Our friends know that. And, frankly, our clients do. Like, we're just really clear. We're not available. Typically Sundays at about 5:30 or 6, we power down. And, we return to the world on Monday morning.
Wow. Wow. Those are some great tips. That's, I think people are always looking for things because I think in the nonprofit world, you invested so much in what you do. I think about people that, are fundraising for hospitals or in the healthcare arena, right? You have that pressure on you that if you don't meet your goal, people are going to die or people aren't going to get the treatment that they need, right? So you have that huge thing where, if you were selling shoes, it's not necessarily, a life and death kind of thing. So I always find that, the fundraisers, we put so much pressure on ourselves and we aren't always able to turn it off. So having some practical suggestions on how to turn it off was very helpful.
Well, thank you. And as I said, I'm a work in progress. There's some of this I still struggle with.
As we all are, Dolph, it's been absolutely amazing to chat with you. If people wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
So the best way, if you go to successfulnonprofits.com, and that's our consulting practices website. I'm also on LinkedIn. I always joke there's only one Dolph Goldenburg in the world. So if you look on LinkedIn for Dolph Goldenburg, you will find me.
There you go. Dolph, absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jack. It's so good to see you again.
Hi, folks. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.